What if I told you that the harder you chase happiness, the more it runs away from you? And what if the secret to actually being happy is to stop trying so hard to be happy? I know, it sounds like one of those fortune cookie philosophies that makes you want to throw your phone across the room. But stick with me here because this paradox is about to blow your mind and possibly save your sanity. Picture this. You wake up Monday morning and instead of your usual existential dread, you decide today is the day you're going to be happy. You've read the self-help books, you've got your gratitude journal, maybe you even bought one of those expensive smoothie makers because apparently kale equals joy. But by noon, you're more miserable than when you started, wondering why forcing yourself to smile feels like emotional torture. Welcome to the happiness trap, my friends, where the very act of pursuing happiness becomes the thing that makes us miserable. It's like trying to fall asleep by thinking really hard about falling asleep, or trying to be spontaneous by carefully planning your spontaneity. The more effort you put in, the further you get from your goal. Now, before you think I'm about to tell you to embrace sadness and become a professional pessimist, let me clarify something. This isn't about giving up on feeling good or resigning yourself to a life of misery while eating ice cream in your pajamas at 3 in the afternoon. Though honestly, sometimes that's exactly what you need. The paradox of seeking happiness reveals something fascinating about human psychology. When we make happiness our primary goal, we create a constant measuring stick against our current state. We're essentially saying to ourselves, I am not happy enough right now, so I need to fix that. But here's the kicker. The moment you decide you're not happy enough, you've already created the very unhappiness you're trying to escape. Think about the last time you had a genuinely great moment. Were you sitting there thinking, okay, I need to be happy now, let me activate my happiness protocols? Probably not. You were likely completely absorbed in whatever you were doing. Whether it was laughing with friends, getting lost in a good book, or finally beating that impossible video game level that had been haunting your dreams. Psychologists call this the hedonic treadmill, and it's basically the universe's way of pranking us. We think that if we just get that promotion, find that perfect relationship, buy that thing we've been wanting, or achieve that goal, then we'll be happy. But what actually happens is we get a brief spike of satisfaction, then return to our baseline level of contentment, now with a new set of problems and desires to worry about. It's like being a hamster on a wheel, except the hamster thinks the wheel is taking it somewhere exciting instead of just spinning in place. The destination keeps moving further away because we keep raising the bar for what should make us happy. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Ancient philosophers figured this out thousands of years ago, which is both impressive and slightly annoying because it means we've been making the same mistakes for millennia. The Stoics talked about how external circumstances have very little to do with our actual well-being. Buddhist teachings emphasize that attachment to outcomes, including the outcome of being happy, leads to suffering. But let's bring this down to earth with some real-world examples that don't require you to meditate on a mountaintop or read ancient texts in their original languages. Ever notice how vacation anticipation is often better than the actual vacation? You spend months planning, researching, getting excited, and then you're there dealing with delayed flights, overpriced food, and the crushing realization that you still have to be yourself even in paradise. The pursuit created more joy than the achievement. Or consider social media, that wonderful invention that lets us curate highlight reels of happiness. We post pictures of our best moments, then scroll through other people's best moments, wondering why our regular Tuesday doesn't look like everyone else's perpetual festival of joy. We're literally comparing our behind-the-scenes footage to everyone else's highlight reel, then wondering why we feel inadequate. The dating world is another perfect example of this paradox in action. The people who are desperately seeking love often repel it because desperation is about as attractive as a wet sock. Meanwhile, the people who seem most comfortable being single often find themselves drowning in romantic opportunities. It's like the universe has a twisted sense of humor about these things. So what's the alternative? If trying to be happy makes us unhappy, what exactly are we supposed to do? Sit in a corner and wait for happiness to accidentally bump into us? The secret lies in shifting focus from happiness as a destination to happiness as a byproduct. Instead of asking, how can I be happy? Try asking, what's meaningful to me? Or what am I curious about? Or even, how can I be useful? When you engage with life based on values, interests, and connections, rather than emotional outcomes, something magical happens. You stop monitoring your happiness levels every 5 minutes, like you're checking your phone battery. You get absorbed in activities that matter to you, and happiness sneaks up on you while you're busy living. This doesn't mean you should ignore your feelings or pretend that emotions don't matter. It means treating happiness like weather rather than like a destination. Sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's raining, sometimes there's a hurricane of feelings. But the weather doesn't define the value of your day or determine whether you should leave the house. The people who seem genuinely content aren't the ones constantly chasing peak experiences or trying to optimize their mood. They're usually the ones who found ways to be present with whatever they're experiencing, good or bad, without needing it to be different. Here's a practical way to think about it. Imagine happiness is like a cat. If you chase a cat around trying to force it to love you, it will run away and hide under the couch. But if you sit down and focus on something else, maybe read a book or work on a puzzle, the cat will eventually wander over and purr in your lap when you least expect it. The paradox extends to how we relate to negative emotions too. When we make avoiding sadness, anxiety, or frustration our primary goal, we end up spending enormous amounts of energy running from perfectly normal human experiences. We create suffering on top of pain by fighting against feelings that are temporary and natural. What if instead of trying to eliminate negative emotions, we got curious about them? What if sadness was information rather than a problem to solve? What if anxiety was your mind trying to help you prepare for challenges rather than evidence that something is wrong with you? This shift from fighting feelings to befriending them is revolutionary. It's the difference between being at war with yourself and being your own ally. And guess what happens when you stop fighting yourself? You have a lot more energy available for actually living your life. The happiness industry wants to sell you the idea that you should feel good all the time, that contentment is your natural state, and that any deviation from perpetual joy means you're doing something wrong. But that's like expecting it to be 72 degrees and sunny every single day. Emotional weather is supposed to change. The real irony is that when you stop trying to be happy all the time, you actually end up experiencing more genuine positive emotions. They show up naturally when you're engaged in meaningful activities, connected to people you care about, or simply present with whatever moment you're in. So maybe the secret isn't learning how to be happy. Maybe it's learning how to be human, with all the complexity and contradiction that entails. Maybe it's about building a life that's interesting and meaningful enough that happiness becomes irrelevant as a primary goal. The next time you catch yourself desperately trying to manufacture good feelings, remember that you're probably doing it backwards. Stop chasing happiness like it owes you money and start chasing the things that make you feel alive, curious, connected, or useful. Because here's the beautiful truth about the happiness paradox. The moment you stop needing to be happy is often the moment you realize you already are.